My name is Emily. I'm 40 years old. I've heard my name means to grow up cheerfully. However, when I was 15, I found out that my father's ex-girlfriend was named Emily. Ever since, I've quietly doubted the true origin of my name. Honestly, as a kid, there are certain delicate past details about my parents I'd rather not know. They didn't really dote on me when I was young. My brother, 3 years older, is named Ryan. He's smart and charming. Both parents always wanted a boy. Ryan, as their first child, was loved immensely. Our grandparents believed the first child must be a boy, an old-fashioned thought. My mother gave birth to a boy despite immense pressure. With this background, my parents loved Ryan more than anyone else. What about me? I always got hand-me-down clothes from Ryan. Even New Year's money had a clear disparity. Relatives always invited Ryan instead of being told to be patient because you're elder. I was told to support the boys, a puzzling way to instill ladylike behavior. I believe I was raised with a lot of discrimination. It felt like I was always many steps behind. My redeeming feature has always been my carefree nature. My parents said, "You never think about anything." If I thought too much, I might have become dark and resentful towards Ryan. Ryan is Ryan and I am me. Our family is a bit strange, but that's okay. I decided to accept our family and didn't care about my parents' attitude. No matter the difference in treatment, I am thankful to my parents for raising me. Ren, as we were kids, is still my sibling. Deep down, I couldn't truly hate them. However, that sentiment wavered after a particular incident when I was in my late 20s. My father retired. Both he and my mother, a homemaker, lived on their pension. Shortly after, my mother had a fall leading to paralysis in her legs. She had to be cared for. With my father retired, I thought he'd be around to help. But I was mistaken. "Hey, Emily, I can't do anything on my own, so come back home." The first thing my father said after a long time was outrageous. "What? That's impossible. If I return, I can't commute to my job." Instead of saying, "You can do anything, at least try to learn or practice," he said, "How dare you talk to your father like that? Just quit your job and come home. Don't you care about your mother?" It's not as simple as quitting and returning. My father has always been domineering. He had my mother take care of everything for years. Now that my mother has fallen ill, he's become a helpless man. It seems he's plotting to make me return and take my mother's place. My brother works closer to home. Ask him instead. Why does he only try to use me now, even though he never cared much for me before? I finally moved out and have been living freely. I never thought I'd give in to him, but for some reason, he started calling my workplace. Because of this, I couldn't concentrate on my job, and my colleagues and boss started to look at me oddly. Due to constant calls, I worked so hard to get this job, which I really wanted. I wanted to continue working there forever. But because of my father's relentless calls, I became stressed, affecting my work. I had no choice but to quit reluctantly. I decided to return home, only to find it in a terrible state. My father, now without a job, seemed to have nothing to do. He became obsessed with horse racing and would spend all his pension on it. The day he was paid, he was drinking more than before, and every morning I find empty beer cans and wine glasses all over the table. I had heard that there were some savings set aside for retirement, but the household finances were in shambles. No wonder when I suggested hiring a professional caregiver, my father hesitated. The utility bills were overdue and were paid only when the pension came in. It's a paycheck-to-paycheck situation. At this rate, even when the pension comes in, it'll be gone in no time. I had to use my savings to stabilize our lives initially, and then renovate the house to make it wheelchair accessible for my mother. Later, I found a job near home, left my mother in a daytime care service, and dedicated about $2,000 a month to care and living expenses. My savings, which I started accumulating since my first job, seemed to be running out despite working. Expenses kept mounting. Meanwhile, my father neither worked nor took responsibility, constantly depending on me financially and in my daily life. In a harsh sense, I felt completely leeched on. Between household chores in the morning, work in the daytime, and caregiving at night, I felt I was reaching my limit. Ideally, I wanted to place my mother in a nursing facility and leave my dad to fend for himself. This would mean all the money currently being spent on my father could be saved or used for my own expenses. However, my father vehemently opposed sending my mother to a facility, and she herself seemed to rely only on me, saying, "Why should I go to a facility when you're taking care of me?" I consulted my brother, but as expected, he was indifferent. It was clear that I was the one who had to make sacrifices, and so I found myself trapped in what felt like a prison called home. 3 years after starting this hellish cohabitation, my brother suddenly contacted me saying my girlfriend is pregnant, so we got married. He then visited with his wife, whom I'd never even met before. "Wow, I was looking forward to meeting Ryan's sister because of the way you talked about her. But she doesn't look anything like you. She's not cute at all." Paisley starts laughing. Needless to say, I felt a strong aversion to her sheer rudeness. Despite it being her first visit, she walks around our home as if she owns the place. She even enters my room without permission, uses my makeup, and then says, "I like this, I'll take it." She even rummages through the cabinet where my mother's jewelry is kept and asks, "How much can you sell 18-karat gold for nowadays?" She seems a little dangerous. She is definitely not a good woman, even though they're married. I think it would be better if they split up. But both my father and mother are only concerned about wanting a grandchild, to the point where they seem clueless, and I can't help but envy them a little. The thought of being related to this woman scared me a bit. My bad premonition came true on that very day, but I'm so nervous about raising a child for the first time. Paisley says it sweetly, twirling her hair. "Then you should live here," said my dad, who had been staring at Paisley's chest the whole time, suggesting this with a lecherous look. "Really? Are you sure?" Of course, as my parents, brother, and wife are getting excited about living together, I couldn't help but ask, "What will we do about the lack of rooms?" "You can move out." What my father's words astounded me. "That's a good idea. You should hurry up and leave." "Can you move out soon?" It might sound self-praising, but I believe I've been very dutiful to my parents, yet they're so quick to turn their backs on me. Hold on, I can't just be thrown out like this. I've been paying for Mom's caregiving, and I don't even have the money to move. What about Mom's care? I'll give you the money for caregiving or whatever. Thanks to working at a major company, not some small local business like you, I'm not struggling for money. "All right, Emily, go to your room and pack up your things. Move out by today." He patted me on the back as if to usher me toward my room. He looked pleased, as if he had found a quality new host to leech off. "Move out by today," he says, "but it's snowing outside. I don't have any money. Where am I supposed to live from now on?" Why, this doesn't make sense, does it? Without thinking, I voiced my true feelings. "This isn't a joke. You're so naive, Emily. Listen, I won't say it twice. We're moving in because I'm having a child. The Aiden should leave, taking him back." I instinctively looked at my parents, even at my mother whom I had desperately cared for all these years. "I wanted to be with my grandson. Just accept it," she said, smiling as if guiding me to acceptance. Saying so, he hastily packed up my room's belongings into a bag. "At least wait a few days until I find a place to live," but they forcibly dragged me by the arm and threw me out of the house. No matter how many times I rang the doorbell, they ignored me. Tossed around by my parents and finally by my brother, my life isn't their toy. Even when I was treated coldly as a child, I always smiled. It was my self-defense. But both my parents and brother misunderstood, thinking I could handle anything. "This isn't a joke. Don't mess with me." Crying, I left my family home and wandered the streets aimlessly. Finally, I found a cat hat and sought refuge in an internet cafe. When I contacted a friend living in town, she miraculously offered to let me stay for a while. True friends are indeed priceless. With her support, I managed to save enough to live alone again. I haven't saved enough to leave town, but I don't want any more ties with my family. I decided to leave the state once I save more. But one day, my father and brother came to see me. They had apparently found my address in some official records. "May I help you?" I intentionally used formal language as if they were strangers. In response, both of them kneeled down in front of me. I'm sorry, he pleaded in a tearful voice. Please help us. We need to kick Ryan's wife out of the house. When I asked for an explanation, they said the situation at home had deteriorated significantly. I don't want to live with you, stingy lot. Laughing Packley had apparently kicked my brother and parents out of our family home. Packley had completely brainwashed my father, and as a result, he made the mistake of changing the house's title to include her name. So it wasn't taken, but rather given to her. I had heard that Paisley had fallen hard for my brother and pursued him fervently. But even back then, I felt something was off. My brother, who had become hairy in adulthood and practiced judo, was chubby and far from handsome. Why would Paisley, a slender and attractive woman who could have her pick of men, fall for him? I always wondered. It turned out she was after his money, and she had other men in her life. While the child's father was supposedly my brother, she continued to have affairs even after their marriage. When my brother found out and confronted Paisley, the next day, everyone was evicted. Paisley probably sensed that her other relationship would be discovered and cunningly persuaded my father to change the house title. They're naive, all their plans backfired, and they couldn't even live with the eagerly anticipated grandchild. Moreover, Paisley maxed out my mother's credit card. By the time they realized it, she had already bought electronics and precious metals. I always had a bad feeling about her, so I wasn't very surprised. It was more like I knew it. As far as I'm concerned, I have neither parents nor a brother. Who are you again? At that moment, the faces of my father and brother went pale. Are you going to abandon us too? Your mother can't even get in a wheelchair now. She's bitten. Don't you feel sorry for her after she was kicked out? He shouted, It was you who wanted to be with your grandchild and kicked me out. Mom told me to give up, so I gave up on being part of your family. Isn't it your fault, Dad, for changing the house title? My father was silently grinding his teeth. Wait, Emily, we are family. Let's help each other. My brother extended his hand, but I brushed it off. You ignored my calls when I repeatedly asked for help during Mom's care, and now you're saying this. My brother hesitated, looking guilty. My father shouted in his place. Forget about Ryan. Don't you have any gratitude for your parents? Have you forgotten all we did for you, you ungrateful child? Hearing this, I lost my temper, glaring at them with fury. I had appreciated what you did for me, which is why I quit the job I loved and returned home. I even spent money and renovated the house to make it comfortable. I put up with so much, yet because of your selfishness, I was kicked out. Do you really expect me to just say thank you? We apologized for that, didn't we? Oh, so apologizing makes everything okay? Well then, I'm sorry too for leaving you guys behind. I apologize, but I won't help. Since I apologized, you have to forgive me, right? How can you be so cheeky, even as a daughter? As my father lunged at me, I quickly defended myself using the self-defense techniques I learned at school. Ouch! He cried out in pain and curled up on the spot. My brother just stared at me, stunned, not even caring about father. I took the purifying salt that was by the entrance and threw it forcefully at both of them. I wished it would get into their eyes as they screamed and covered their faces. Stop showing me those greedy faces and get out. Saying this, I scattered the salt and kicked them out. People passing by noticed the commotion and stared. Normally, I would have felt embarrassed, but I was too angry to care. Wait, please, we can surely understand each other if we talk it out. We're blood related. Sorry, but I think you guys, my blood relatives, are the ones I can't understand the most. There's not a single decent person among you. The only sane one is me. Please never come near me again. Before they could open their eyes, I managed to distance myself from them. I kept throwing salt and yelling without any hesitation. Listen, I'll say this one last time. Never, ever approach me again. I consider all of my family dead. So if something happens to you, I won't visit you in the hospital or attend your funerals. I gave them one last fierce glare and slammed the front door shut, yet they still lingered at the front door. I want to talk, he said, sitting down. I'll call the police. And just like that, both he and my brother were gone. After that, I received several letters from my father. It seems that my parents took refuge at my mother's younger sister's place. The letters were pitiful, begging for help. But from my perspective, I felt sorry for the aunt who suddenly had to accommodate the elderly couple. In the third letter, it was mentioned that my father was pushing the caregiving responsibilities onto my aunt. This led to a fight with her husband, resulting in them being kicked out. Now they are renting a cheap apartment and are back to fighting with my brother's wife. They aim to reclaim the family home, but they probably can't afford to hire a lawyer. Considering they changed the property title themselves, they probably don't stand a chance. My brother, still separated but not divorced from his wife, had an affair. He became the cheating husband. The woman he was involved with is a friend of his wife's. It seems like a trap, but there's no evidence. Consequently, the divorce discussions are at a standstill. My brother claims his wife's affair ruined the family and is demanding compensation. His wife argues that there's no evidence she cheated while raising their child, but my husband did. She seems to be asking for hefty compensation, property division, and child support. Since neither of their affairs can be proven, the divorce discussions are going nowhere. As for me, I met a man at one of my jobs and we got married. It was a workplace romance, so we were wary of being seen dating in public. Instead, we rented apartments near each other. We spent most of our days at one or the other's place, essentially living together. Then one day, oh, this actress is getting married. Should we? That casual proposal, as if we were just heading to a convenience store, remains a fond memory. We're both down to earth, not into grand gestures. I'm glad he didn't attempt a big surprise, given that I'm not the type to react much. It might have felt awkward for him, but life is full of surprises. 2 years after getting married, I found out I was pregnant with triplets. Having had no experience with kids, even those lacking siblings, it was overwhelming. Taking care of one would be hard enough, let alone 3. But with ample support from my husband and his family, we've been managing. 1 boy and 2 girls. When I found out, I was determined to love them all equally. However, when I looked at them, such determination was unnecessary. They're all adorable, and it's impossible not to give them my all. The only challenge is when they all want to hold my hand at the same time. I've turned it into a game. We'll switch after 100 steps. However, kids are fickle. Suddenly, they'd say, "I want to hold hands with Daddy today." To the children, it seems both their mom and dad love them equally, which is a joy I hope to continue building a family where everyone, true to my name, shines brightly in happiness.
Hi, I'm Kayla, and trust me, you're going to want to hear this. My sister-in-law tried to steal my babies before they were even born. Yes, you heard that right. Let me take you back to where it all began. My husband James and I had been trying for a baby for 3 long years. Those years were filled with heartbreak, countless fertility treatments, and more needles than I cared to count. Through it all, his sister Amy was our biggest cheerleader. Amy had always been open about her struggles with infertility due to complications from endometriosis, so she seemed to truly empathize with us. "You're going to be the best mom, Kayla," she'd say, bringing over fertility-boosting smoothies and even tracking my ovulation cycle with almost obsessive dedication. "I just know it's going to happen soon." When we finally got the news that I was pregnant, with twins, no less, Amy was the first person we told. She burst into tears, pulling me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. "This is perfect," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. 2 babies, 1 for each arm. Looking back, there was something off in her expression, but in that moment, I was too overjoyed to notice. James and I were ecstatic. His parents, Linda and Robert, couldn't contain their excitement either. Linda began knitting tiny baby blankets, while Robert started planning the nursery's renovation. They lived just a few blocks away, so family dinners quickly became baby prep central. Everything seemed perfect until my 4th month. That's when Amy started showing up to every single doctor's appointment. At first, I thought it was sweet. If I was just in the area, she'd say, somehow always arriving moments before my name was called. Besides, I want to learn everything about my little niece or nephew. But soon, her behavior shifted from supportive to unsettling. She began asking strange questions during the appointments. "Dr. Santos, hypothetically, how would a surrogate handle the birth certificate? Or, what documents would a biological mother need to prove the babies are hers?" Dr. Santos, my OB/GYN, remained professional, but I noticed her giving Emmy odd looks. James, meanwhile, was too busy with work. He's a software developer with tight deadlines to witness these red flags. Then, one day, Amy showed up with a thick folder of paperwork. Just some information about my health history, she said nonchalantly. You know, in case the babies inherit anything from our side of the family. That word, however, began slipping into her vocabulary more frequently, as though the twins were partially hers. She touched my growing belly without asking and even told strangers she was finally going to be a mother. I tried talking to James about her bizarre behavior, but he brushed it off. She's just excited about being an aunt, he said. If only we'd known what was really happening. At my 6-month checkup, everything unraveled. The nurse kept giving me strange looks as she reviewed my chart, then called Dr. Santos over for a whispered conversation. Mrs. Harrison, Dr. Santos said cautiously, there seems to be some confusion in your records. What do you mean? I asked, my stomach nodding. She frowned at her computer screen. We have duplicate files, one listing you as the mother and another showing you as a surrogate for Amy Harrison. My heart stopped. What? That's impossible. These are my babies. Amy is my sister-in-law, nothing more. Dr. Santos hesitated, then pulled up more documents. There are signed surrogacy agreements here, she said. They're dated before your pregnancy. The signatures look legitimate. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. But I never signed anything. There wasn't a surrogacy arrangement. I was trembling as I called James, my voice barely steady. You need to hear this. Before James could make it to the hospital, Emmy had already started her performance. That evening I walked into my in-laws' house to find Linda and Robert sitting on the couch, their faces grim, while Amy sobbed dramatically into her hands. The moment she saw me, her head snapped up, and she screamed, "How could you try to steal my babies?" I froze in shock as she continued, "You agreed to be my surrogate. We have all the paperwork. You're just trying to keep them because you got attached." James arrived moments later, stepping into a room already thick with tension. His parents were consoling Amy, their eyes flicking toward me like I was some kind of monster. "Show him the papers, Amy," Linda urged. "Show your brother the truth." With a triumphant look, Amy pulled out the folder I'd seen her carrying before. Now I understood what it truly contained. Surrogacy agreements, medical records, even emails supposedly between us discussing the arrangement. Every page was fake, every word forged. But to an untrained eye, it all looked legitimate. James stared at the documents, his brow furrowed. "Kayla would never agree to this without telling me," he said, his voice steady but tinged with doubt. Amy pounced on that hesitation. "I'm protecting my babies," she cried, pulling out even more papers. "Look at these ultrasound records. They're listed under my name. Ask anyone at the hospital. I have copies of everything." Robert, usually the quiet one, spoke up. "There must be some reasonable explanation. Kayla, did you perhaps agree to this during your fertility struggles and change your mind?" "No," I shouted, my voice trembling with fury. "She's lying. She forged everything." But Amy had done her homework. Every document appeared flawless, every signature an exact match. She'd even altered hospital records. I watched helplessly as my in-laws' expressions shifted from concern to suspicion. "I think Kayla should stay somewhere else until we sort this out," Linda suggested quietly, avoiding my eyes. "For everyone's safety. She's not going anywhere," James snapped, his voice sharp and unwavering. "These are our babies. I was there for every fertility treatment, every negative test, every moment of hope and heartbreak." He turned to his sister, his tone softening but still firm. "Amy, you're not well." But the damage was done. The seeds of doubt had been planted. That night, as we drove home, James was unusually quiet. The moment we got through the door, he pulled out his laptop and started digging through old emails and documents. "I'm going to figure out how she did this," he promised. "There has to be a trail." I placed my hands protectively over my belly, feeling the twins kick. They knew who their real mother was, even if the rest of the family was starting to question it. Around 3 a.m., James suddenly sat up straight, staring at his screen. "The metadata is wrong," he whispered. Amy backdated everything, but she messed up the file properties. These documents were all created 2 weeks ago. It was the first crack in her perfect plan. James called in sick to work the next morning and continued his investigation. Amy had overlooked one crucial detail. James worked in cybersecurity. By midday, he turned to me with a triumphant look. "I got into her cloud storage," he said. "Look at this folder. Hospital templates." She downloaded official letterheads and forms. There's even a Photoshop tutorial on document forgery in her recent files. My hands clenched into fists. "Can we prove it's her computer?" "Better," James said, a grim smile on his face. "Her browsing history shows searches for how to hack hospital records and servicey agreement templates. She wasn't even trying to hide it." While James gathered digital evidence, I called Dr. Santos. She'd been reviewing security footage from the clinic. "Mrs. Harrison," she said, her voice tense, "we found something disturbing. There's video of your sister-in-law accessing the nurse's station computer when staff were busy. She had several flash drives with her." The truth was unraveling fast. One of the nurses even recognized Amy, not from my appointments, but from another hospital where she used to volunteer. She was fired, the nurse revealed. She tried to access patient records. They kept it quiet to avoid a scandal. Armed with this new evidence, we went to Linda and Robert. James presented everything. The security footage, the file metadata, the browsing history. But Amy was ready with a counterattack. "She's trying to frame me," Amy shouted, pacing the living room. "James works in cybersecurity. He could have faked all of this." Linda wrung her hands. "I just don't understand why either of you would lie about this." "Maybe we should look into Amy's past more carefully," Robert said quietly. "The nurse's story about the other hospital." "You're all against me," Amy screamed, her face twisting with rage. "Fine. I have more proof, messages from the fertility clinic." She grabbed her laptop and started typing furiously, but in her panic, she clicked the wrong folder. Suddenly, the TV screen, connected to her laptop via an HDMI cable, lit up. Dozens of files appeared, labeled Kayla's medical records. "Edit these." The room went silent. Amy slammed the laptop shut, but it was too late. We'd all seen it. Every forged document, every fake email, every step of her twisted plan laid bare. "I just wanted to be a mother," she whispered, her voice cracking. "They're supposed to be mine. I did everything right. I tracked her cycle, went to every appointment, planned everything perfectly. They're mine." Linda started crying. Robert looked exhausted. James put his arm around me protectively and spoke softly but firmly. "Get help, Amy, before we have to get the police involved." Looking at Amy's face, that unsettling mixture of desperation and calculation, I knew this wasn't over. She still had one more card to play, and I had a sinking feeling it would be her most dangerous move yet. Her final act of desperation came 2 days later. Amy attempted to access the hospital's records department using a fake employee ID, intending to replace my real medical files with her forged versions. Security caught her in the act, and the hospital immediately pressed charges. The subsequent investigation unraveled everything, not just the forged documents and hacked records, but a disturbing history of similar incidents. Amy had been fired from 3 different hospitals for attempting to access confidential patient files. There was even a restraining order from a former coworker whose ultrasound photos Amy had stolen, claiming they were her own. "She needs a psychiatric evaluation," the detective told us. This pattern of behavior points to deeper, underlying issues. The court-mandated mental health assessment diagnosed Amy with severe attachment disorder and delusional behavior. The judge ordered her to undergo mandatory treatment and sentenced her to 5 years of probation. She was also permanently banned from working in or volunteering at any medical facility. James attended every court session, watching his sister's carefully constructed lies crumble under the weight of evidence. "I should have seen it," he kept saying, guilt written across his face. All those years, her strange behaviors, the red flags we ignored. Linda and Robert struggled with their own guilt. They had nearly helped Amy steal their own grandchildren. During a tearful family dinner, Linda admitted, "We failed both of our children. We ignored Amy's problems for so long, and then we doubted you, Kayla. I don't know how we can ever make it right." I looked at them holding our twins for the first time. "By being there for your grandchildren," I said softly, "by helping us make sure they grow up understanding what real family loyalty means." Emma and Ethan were born 2 weeks early but perfectly healthy. Their birth certificates, listing James and me as their parents, were verified and triple-checked by hospital administration. Amy wasn't allowed within 100 yards of the hospital during my delivery. From the moment they arrived, my in-laws threw themselves into grandparent duties as if making up for lost time. Robert meticulously baby-proofed our entire house, while Linda stocked our freezer with months of home-cooked meals. James, ever the protector, fortified all our medical and legal records with extra layers of security. No one's ever going to question our family again, he promised one evening, watching Emma and Ethan sleep peacefully in their nursery. Through family friends, we heard that Amy had moved across the country after completing her initial treatment. She sent one letter to her parents, acknowledging she needed help and was committed to continuing therapy. James refused to read it, but I did. I lost myself in a fantasy, she wrote, and I nearly destroyed the people I loved the most. Today, the twins are celebrating their first birthday. Our house is filled with family, friends, and the sounds of laughter. Linda and Robert are holding Emma and Ethan's hands, guiding them as they take their first toddling steps. Across the room, James catches my eye and smiles. That same warm smile that made me fall in love with him years ago. We made it through the storm. Stronger. Our family isn't perfect, but it's real. Every smile, every tear, every sleepless night. It's all authentically ours. And no one can forge the kind of love that binds us together. What would you do if a family member tried to steal your children using forged documents? Would you press charges like we did, or handle it privately through mental health intervention? Let us know in the comments. If you or someone you know is dealing with toxic family dynamics, share this story. Sometimes it helps to know you're not alone in facing impossible situations with the people who should love you most. See you in the next video. Hi, I'm Pamela. This was the kind of weekend I've been dreaming about for months. My soon-to-be in-laws had invited everyone to their sprawling countryside estate for a relaxed family gathering. The scent of fresh air, the creak of aged wooden floors, and the towering oak tree in the yard whispered decades of family stories. It was idyllic, a perfect setting for the next chapter of my life. I stood in the main hall, sunlight streaming through dusty windows, as my friend Lisa admired my engagement ring. Her eyes widened with delight. "Oh, Pamela, it's stunning. Jack has such good taste," she gushed. I laughed, warmth filling my chest. He does. I can't wait to start this new chapter with him. Jenna, a college friend, joined us, a glass of champagne in hand. "So have you picked out the dress yet?" Before I could answer, Lisa practically squealed, "She has." "Jenna, it's breathtaking. You'll die when you see it." Their excitement was infectious. Between laughter and wedding talk, I excused myself to grab refreshments from the kitchen. As I neared the door, the hum of voices stopped me in my tracks. Clara and Beth, my soon-to-be mother-in-law and sister-in-law. My first instinct was to step in and say hello, but the sharp edge in their tone made me hesitate. "She's absolutely not fit for this family," Beth hissed. Clara sighed deeply. "I don't understand what Jack sees in her either, but what can we do? The wedding's practically here." "Emma would have been perfect," Beth muttered. "She's beautiful, wealthy, and from the right circles." I froze, my breath catching in my throat. "Emma? Who was Emma?" Clara's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "You're still planning on spilling red wine on her dress, aren't you?" Beth chuckled darkly. "That's a classic, but no. I've got something better in mind. What if we tampered with the wedding cake? Imagine the chaos if everyone got sick." The calculated malice in her tone sent a chill down my spine. Clara mused, "Or perhaps I could chat with Mrs. Patterson during the ceremony. A little nudge about Pamela's past, and she'll create a scene for sure." Their laughter filled the kitchen, cold and cruel. My heart pounded, a lump forming in my throat. How could they? Why? Retreating silently, I returned to Lisa and Jenna, my face pale. They immediately noticed. "Pamela, what's wrong?" Lisa asked, her voice full of concern. I hesitated before telling them everything. Their reactions mirrored my own. Jenna's eyes flashed with fury. "Those witches. Who does that?" Lisa grabbed my hand, her grip firm. "We're not letting them get away with this, Pamela." A sense of determination settled within me. They think I'm an easy target, but they're in for a surprise. Our conversation stretched into the night, plans forming amidst the shock. I wasn't alone. Whatever Clara and Beth had planned, I had my friends by my side, ready to fight back. When I returned to my childhood home the next day, the memory of their laughter still haunted me, biting at my peace. I needed more support, and there was no one better than Sasha and Mia to confide in. As the evening sun bathed my living room in gold, I poured my heart out. "You're telling us Clara and Beth are sabotaging your wedding?" Maya asked, her expression a mixture of disbelief and outrage. Sasha slammed her coffee mug onto the table. "Those snakes. Who do they think they are?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling. "What do I do? It's my wedding, and the thought of someone deliberately trying to ruin it." My voice trembled under the weight of betrayal. Mia took my hand, her eyes fierce with determination. "We're going to make sure they don't get their way. You're not facing this alone, Pamela. We've got your back. Always." We spent hours in Mia's apartment, strategizing. Sasha, ever the planner, had a notebook open, jotting down ideas. "All right, Pamela, we need a game plan," she said, tapping her pen. "If Clara and Beth are planning to pull something at the wedding, we'll need eyes on them at all times. We can take shifts to ensure they don't cause any mischief." Mia nodded. "And it's not just during the wedding. We need to be vigilant before it too. Your dress, the cake, everything could be a target." The next morning, over brunch at our favorite coffee shop, I filled Jack in. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "My mother and sister? Really, Pamela? Are you sure?" "Believe me, I wish I weren't," I said, my voice quiet. "I overheard them at the house." Jack ran a hand through his hair, his brow furrowed. "Okay, I trust you. I'll keep an eye on them, but you're certain they're planning something for the wedding?" "I'm certain. Mia and Sasha are helping too." He sighed, his shoulders heavy with the weight of it all. "This is overwhelming. But we'll get through it. Together." Later that evening, the three of us dove into research at Mia's apartment. The warm glow of her desk lamp illuminated the scattered papers and open laptops. We combed through articles on wedding sabotage and scrutinized Clara and Beth's social media profiles. Sasha's eyes lit up with an idea. "What if we gather evidence, like a recording of them plotting? It could come in handy if we need to confront them." "It's risky," Mia agreed, "but worth it. We just need to catch one of their schemes on tape." Armed with a discreet voice recorder, I visited Clara and Beth's house under the guise of a routine stop. Following Mia and Sasha's careful coaching, I planted the device where it would pick up their conversation. To our relief, it worked. The recording captured every detail of their schemes, including a new plan to switch the seating arrangements at the reception to cause chaos. Hearing their voices solidified my resolve. With this evidence, I felt a renewed sense of strength. "To allies," Sasha said, raising an imaginary toast, "and to ensuring your big day goes off without a hitch." The sun rose on my wedding day, its rays spilling over the beautiful garden venue. Fairy lights twinkled in the soft morning breeze. But instead of feeling nervous, I was determined. In the bridal suite, Sasha and Mia stood beside me in their elegant bridesmaid dresses. As I adjusted my veil in the mirror, Mia smirked, holding a glass of red wine. "Don't even joke with that," I said, giggling nervously. "Relax," Maya replied with a wink. "This isn't for you. It's for Beth." Moments later, Beth approached with a suspiciously sweet smile, a glass of red wine clutched a little too tightly in her hand. "Congrats, Pamela," she said, her voice dripping with insincerity. As she passed by, her arm swayed deliberately toward my pristine white dress. But Mia was quicker. She bumped into Beth just in time, spilling the drink all over Beth's pale pink dress instead. "Oh my. So clumsy of me," Mia said, her tone a perfect mix of mock apology and mischief. Beth's face turned a deep shade of crimson, matching the wine now soaking her dress. "Mia, watch where you're going." Mia smiled slyly. "Oops." I stifled a laugh as Sasha whispered, "Round one to us." But the battle wasn't over. Clara, elegantly dressed, moved among the guests, her voice soft but insidious. I noticed some guests casting furtive glances my way, their expressions uncertain. My Aunt Lisa approached, her brow furrowed. "Pamela, is it true what Clara's been saying about you?" I took a deep breath, ready to respond, but Sasha stepped in. "Don't believe a word, Aunt Lisa. Clara's been stirring the pot all day, and it's all nonsense." Relief washed over my aunt's face. "I thought so. She seemed far too eager to share her gossip. Sasha made quick work of briefing a few other key family members, shutting down Clara's rumors before they could take root. The focus shifted back to the joyous occasion. The ceremony itself was magical. Under a canopy of greenery and twinkling fairy lights, Jack and I exchanged vows. Surrounded by the love of our friends and family, nothing else mattered. The sabotages felt like a distant memory. As the evening wore on and the reception came alive with music and laughter, I couldn't help but smile. Feeling just a touch vindictive, I discreetly played the recording of Clara and Beth scheming for a few close family members. The range of expressions on their faces was satisfying. Shock, disgust, and disbelief rippled through the room. Jake, usually the family's light-hearted jokester, was uncharacteristically serious. I can't believe they'd stooped so low. Lucy, my cousin, shook her head in disbelief. That's just inexcusable. Word spread quickly. Though no one openly confronted them, the chilly reception Clara and Beth received was undeniable. The once chatty pair suddenly found themselves ignored, avoided, and treated like pariahs in their own family gathering. Sasha leaned in, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Justice served, Pamela, and in the best way possible. I smiled, feeling a lightness I hadn't felt in weeks. The rest of the evening was filled with dancing, laughter, and love. As Jack twirled me around on the dance floor, the worries and plots of Clara and Beth felt like a distant storm, leaving behind a breathtaking rainbow in its wake. The rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the shore mirrored the steady beat of my heart. Here I was in paradise, a stunning beach resort with Jack by my side. Sitting on the balcony of our honeymoon suite, a drink in hand, I let myself breathe in the beauty of the horizon stretching endlessly before us. Jack turned to me, his expression serious, tinged with regret. You know, I've been thinking about everything that happened. Pamela, I'm so sorry I doubted you. I looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity of his words. It's okay, Jack. I get it. It's hard to believe your own family would do something like that. He took a deep breath, his voice heavy with emotion. I'm just grateful you had the courage to stand up to them. Honestly, I can't imagine how our wedding would have turned out if it hadn't been for you, and Sasha and Mia. A soft smile tugged at my lips. We do make a pretty good team, don't we? He chuckled, his tone lighter. That's an understatement. As we sat there enjoying the serenity, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Aunt Lisa. Hey Pamela, just wanted to let you know that news about Clara and Beth has spread. Most of the family is furious. Good on you for handling everything so gracefully. Enjoy your honeymoon. Soon after, more messages poured in from friends and family, some expressing shock, others admiration for how I had handled the ordeal. It seems Clara and Beth are finally getting a taste of their own medicine. I mused, scrolling through the messages. Jack nodded. They brought it on themselves. Actions have consequences. The rest of the day was blissful. We explored the resort, indulged in spa treatments, and savored exquisite cuisines. But the best part of it all was simply being with Jack, knowing we had weathered a storm together and emerged stronger. That evening, as we strolled hand in hand along the beach, the cool sand under our feet, I found myself reflecting on everything. The sting of betrayal, the anxiety of the unknown, the relief of having allies, and the sweetness of triumph. Each moment was like a bead on a necklace, threading together the story of our wedding. Jack squeezed my hand, pulling me out of my thoughts. What's on your mind? I smiled up at him. Just how lucky I am, not just for escaping Clara and Beth's schemes, but for having friends like Sasha and Mia, and for having you. He leaned in, brushing a kiss against my forehead. I'm the lucky one, Pamela. For your strength, your resilience, and the love you've brought into my life. We spent the rest of the night lying on beach chairs under a canopy of stars. The past felt like a distant memory, a storm we had overcome together. Raising my glass, I whispered a quiet toast to the horizon, where the vast sea met the endless sky. To us, I said softly. It was a toast to love, friendship, and the sweet taste of victory. What do you think? Do people like Clara and Beth deserve second chances, or are some actions unforgivable? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hi, I'm Safia. Today, I want to share a chapter of my life that was equal parts joyful and heartbreaking. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories like this. Now, let's get into it. My husband Mark and I were over the moon when we finally adopted our son, Lucas. He was about to turn 7, and we wanted his birthday to be unforgettable, a celebration of him joining our family, but not everyone shared our excitement. One afternoon, as I scrolled through party themes, Mark walked into the room, his expression uneasy. "Have you talked to my mom about the party yet?" he asked. I sighed. "Not yet, but I can't avoid it forever. She's going to find out sooner or later." When I finally called his mom, Linda, her voice was clipped, her words brimming with disapproval. "Sophia, why make such a spectacle over this boy?" she asked, not bothering to hide her disdain. "Because he's our son, Linda," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "We want his first birthday with us to be special. A party won't change what he is," she sneered. Her bitterness stung, but I still extended the invitation, hoping that seeing Lucas happy would soften her heart. The week flew by as I booked a community center, ordered Lucas's favorite superhero cake, and sent out invitations. My best friend, Sarah, came over to help set up the day before. As we hung decorations, Sarah turned to me. "Are you sure inviting Linda is a good idea? Last time didn't exactly go smoothly." I tied a balloon to a chair, hesitating for a moment. She's family. Maybe seeing Lucas this happy will change her perspective. Sarah gave me a skeptical look. "Just be careful. She can be cruel." The morning of the party, Lucas was buzzing with excitement, his energy lighting up the house. Guests arrived, bringing gifts and hugs. But when Linda walked in, her tight smile and cold demeanor instantly chilled the warm atmosphere. She pulled me aside almost immediately. "This is a mistake, Sophia," she whispered, her voice sharp. Frustration bubbled inside me. "He's a child, Linda, your grandson. Can't you just be happy for him?" Her eyes scanned the room with disdain. "These people are fools. And you? You're the biggest fool of all for thinking he can replace real family." I took a deep breath, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Today is about Lucas. Please, for his sake, let's keep the peace." As the party picked up, kids ran around with cake-smeared faces, and Lucas was beaming, surrounded by his new friends. I kept a wary eye on Linda, who lingered at the edges, her presence a dark shadow over the celebration. But I didn't expect what came next. The music was lively, and the room buzzed with laughter when suddenly Linda stepped forward, grabbing the DJ's microphone. "Can I have your attention, please?" Her voice cut through the music, silencing the crowd. A tense hush fell over the room as all eyes turned to her. "I have something important to say about this celebration," she began. "What is she doing?" Mark muttered beside me, his jaw tight. Linda's voice dripped with disdain. "Today we're supposedly celebrating Lucas, a boy who has no rightful place in this family." Gasps rippled through the room. I clenched my fists, heat rising in my cheeks. "He's just as much a part of this family as anyone else," I said, my voice trembling with controlled anger. Linda scoffed, her tone sharp and cruel. "A child plucked from nowhere? He'll never carry on the family legacy." Mark stepped forward, his voice firm. "Mom, that's enough. This is neither the time nor the place." Ignoring him, Linda turned to Lucas, her expression softening in a way that felt sickeningly manipulative. "Lucas, sweetheart," she said sweetly, bending down to his level. "Let's get away from this nonsense. How about we go for a little walk?" Lucas looked up at her, confusion clouding his bright eyes. He hesitated, glancing back at me. "But I want to stay at my party," Lucas cried, his voice trembling. "This isn't your real family's party. You don't belong here," Linda whispered harshly, loud enough for others nearby to hear. She reached out to grab his hand, but I was at Lucas's side in an instant, pulling him behind me. "No, stay away from him," I said, my voice sharp and unwavering. Linda sneered, her gaze darting around the room as guests began to murmur and pull out their phones. "This is exactly what I mean. You people are deluding yourselves," she hissed. "Why are you doing this, Linda? Why can't you just be happy for him?" My voice broke, frustration and sadness welling up. "He's not my grandson," she declared coldly. "He will never be." "Enough, Mom," Mark's voice cut through, his tone seething with anger. "You're leaving, now." As he guided his mother out, she resisted, her voice loud and venomous. "You'll all see the truth eventually. This isn't the end." Reluctantly, she left, but the damage had already been done. The chatter of the guests returned, uneasy and subdued, as I handed out party favors. Then a scream sliced through the noise. I spun around. Lucas was gone. Linda was nowhere in sight. Panic surged through me. Mark and I bolted outside, scanning the parking lot frantically. There, at the edge, I saw Linda dragging Lucas by the arm toward her car. "Linda, stop," I shouted, my voice trembling with fear and fury. Lucas struggled, tears streaming down his face. "Mom, help." Mark reached him first, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. "Mom, what are you doing?" Linda glared at him, tightening her grip on Lucas. "I'm fixing a mistake," she spat. "Let him go," Mark demanded, his voice a dangerous calm as he stepped forward. The confrontation drew a crowd. Guests spilled out of the community center, some calling for help, others recording the scene. Linda's eyes darted around, realizing too late the spectacle she had caused. With a harsh shove, she released Lucas, who ran straight into my arms. I held him tightly, feeling his small body tremble as he buried his face in my shoulder. Linda stormed off, disappearing into her car as the crowd dispersed, murmuring in shock. The atmosphere was heavy, the party's spirit dampened. I knelt to Lucas's level, brushing his tear-streaked face. "Hey, it's okay," I whispered, my voice shaking. "You are loved, and you are wanted. Don't ever forget that." Sarah approached, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Everyone here knows the truth, Sophia. We love Lucas, and we've got your back." I stood addressing the remaining guests. "Thank you for staying. This celebration is about family, Lucas's family. And family isn't just about blood. It's about love and support." The music started again, softer this time, and Lucas's friends quickly pulled him back into the festivities. Slowly, the shadow of the earlier incident began to lift, replaced by laughter and warmth. "Thank you, Sarah," I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. "Just doing what's right," she replied. "Lucas deserves all the happiness we can give him." Mark and I exchanged a look, a silent promise passing between us. No matter what it took, we would protect Lucas. The aftermath of the party rippled through the community like a shockwave. Word of Linda's behavior spread quickly, and support for Lucas poured in from friends and neighbors. In our kitchen the next morning, I sat across from Mark, anger simmering beneath my exhaustion. "Can you believe what your mother did?" I asked, my voice low but fierce. Mark rubbed his temples, looking worn. "I can't, Sophia. I just can't understand how she thought that was okay. We need to do something. We can't let her get away with this," I said, my mind racing. Together, we devised a plan. Not to take Linda to court, but to expose her for the person she truly was. With the help of Sarah, we started sharing our story with family and friends. Social media lit up with messages of support for Lucas and widespread condemnation of Linda's outdated, harmful views. Meanwhile, I began a more covert operation. I knew Linda often ranted about family purity during phone calls, so I decided it was time the world heard her true thoughts. "Linda," I said during one call, feigning curiosity, "some people at the party were saying you might have a point. Maybe you could explain it to me again." She took the bait, her tone smug. "It's simple, really. Bloodline is everything. You can't just bring someone from the outside and expect them to fit in. These adopted children, they dilute our heritage." I recorded every word, knowing this would be vital. After weeks of gathering evidence, Mark and I prepared to confront her publicly. At a family gathering, Linda arrived as expected, wearing her usual air of superiority. But as the evening unfolded, whispers of discontent spread among relatives who'd heard rumors of her behavior. When the moment was right, I connected my phone to the sound system and pressed play. "You can't just bring someone from the outside and expect them to fit in." Linda's voice echoed, every word cutting like a knife. Gasps filled the room. Linda froze, her face paling as her own words condemned her. She tried to interrupt, but I played another recording. "These adopted children, they dilute our heritage." The room erupted in murmurs of shock and disgust. Linda's composure crumbled, her eyes darting around in search of allies. None came. As her own words condemned her, Linda stood frozen, her mouth opening and closing as she scanned the room for any support or sympathy. None came. Even those who had remained neutral or silent before couldn't ignore the blatant hatred and bigotry now exposed so plainly. "How could you say these things, Mom?" Mark's voice broke the silence, his disappointment palpable. I was just concerned for the family, Linda stammered, her usual composure crumbling under the weight of the confrontation. Concerned by isolating a child? By spreading hate? I countered, stepping forward. This isn't concern, Linda. It's prejudice. The room remained heavy with tension, the last of the recordings fading into silence. Relatives who had once greeted her warmly now turned their backs, whispering amongst themselves, their expressions a mixture of anger and sadness. As Linda looked around, the realization of her alienation sank in. Her face crumpled, and though she moved as if to speak, perhaps to justify or apologize, no one was interested in hearing more. One by one, the family members shifted their attention to Lucas, surrounding him with kind words and warm gestures. Linda, now a pariah within her own family, left the house without another word. Her departure was marked not by the dramatic outburst she might have hoped for, but by a profound, heavy silence. After she was gone, Mark took my hand, squeezing it gently. "Thank you," he whispered, "for standing up for our son, for standing up for our family." "It had to be done," I replied, watching Lucas laugh, blissfully unaware of the storm that had just passed. Secure in the love and acceptance of his true family, he radiated happiness. That night, as the house quieted and the last of the relatives left, we sat with Lucas, holding him close. Our little family had grown stronger, bound by love and resilience. We had faced ugliness head-on, and in doing so, we had ensured that love, not blood, defined us. The confrontation marked a turning point. The backlash drove Linda to move away, her presence no longer casting a shadow over our lives. With her gone, we rebuilt our family's foundation stronger than ever. Lucas flourished, his laughter becoming a constant melody in our home, and the love within our household deepened. One afternoon, as I watched Lucas chase a butterfly in the yard, I felt the depth of our bond. "You know, Lucas, no matter what anyone says, you are loved beyond measure. This will always be your home," I said, my voice steady with conviction. "I know, Mom," Lucas replied, his eyes bright with certainty. "I love you and Dad so much, too." Linda faded into a distant memory, but the lessons she left behind lingered. We learned the importance of standing firm against toxic influences and reinforcing the values of inclusivity and love within our family and community. As Lucas's laughter filled the air, I knew we were stronger for the challenges we had faced. Love was our greatest defense, a bond unbreakable and unwavering. And now a question for you. Do you think it's ever justifiable to cut a family member out of your life if their beliefs fundamentally oppose your own, especially when those beliefs harm others? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this story if it resonated with you and subscribe to the channel for more powerful tales that inspire, challenge, and connect us. Thank you for watching. Hi, I'm Olivia. You know those moments when everything shifts and nothing will ever be the same. Mine hit at midnight on a freezing January night, with a 102-degree fever and my sister Marina screaming at me to get out of her house. Let me backtrack. I was a second-year medical resident at Metro General, working grueling hours while battling an autoimmune condition that flared at the worst times. Marina, my older sister by 5 years, had offered me a place to stay until I got back on my feet. "What are sisters for?" she'd said, wrapping me in a hug. Back then, it felt like a lifeline. Funny how a new boyfriend changes things. "You can't kick me out. I can barely stand," I said, shivering on the couch, wrapped in the blanket Mom had knitted years ago. "Kyle's moving in tomorrow," Marina snapped. Her arms were crossed, her expression icy. "We need your room." Kyle, her boyfriend of 3 whole months, leaned casually against the wall, wearing a smirk that made my stomach churn. "You've had plenty of time to find your own place," she added. "We never discussed me moving out," I protested, my head pounding and vision swimming. "I'm paying rent." "About that," she interrupted, her tone dripping with mock sympathy. "The money you've been sending doesn't cover your share." It was a blatant lie. I had receipts for every payment. Thank God for my best friend Sophia's advice to document everything. Sophia, a fellow resident who'd seen enough family drama to rival a soap opera, had warned me that Marina's sudden generosity felt off. Desperate, I called our parents. Surely they'd set Marina straight. "Just pack your things and come home," Mom said, sounding distracted. "You know how Marina gets when she's made up her mind." "She's sick, Diana." Dad grumbled in the background. Tell her to stop being dramatic and work it out with her sister. Shaking, I ended the call. Dr. Chen, my supervisor, had warned me last week that stress was delaying my recovery. Family should be your support system, she'd said, not your stressor. I texted Sophia. Marina's kicking me out. Need help. Her reply was instant. On my way. Don't move. Document everything. So feverish and delirious, I hit record on my phone. Marina's voice rose as she hurled my medical supplies into a garbage bag, while Kyle chimed in about how I always played the sick card. They had no idea that their midnight eviction was only the beginning. Sophia's guest room became my haven. Between hospital shifts, I pieced together the truth behind Marina's lies. Those rent payments, she'd been pocketing my money while telling Kyle I was freeloading. One morning, Sophia handed me her tablet. You need to see this, she said. Kyle had a pattern. 3 women in 2 years, each with eerily similar stories. Move in, isolate, drain their finances, then move on. Marina won't believe this, I said, my voice hollow. She doesn't have to, Sophia replied, scrolling through more evidence. But your parents? They need to see who they're really siding with. Meanwhile, my parents were in full denial mode. Mom flooded the family group chat with Sunday dinner plans, pretending nothing had happened. Dad left voicemails about keeping the peace. She's going through a rough time, Mom said when she showed up at the hospital unannounced, holding a thermos of soup. You need to stop holding a grudge. I stared at her, incredulous. I was running a fever of 102 when she threw me out. You're a doctor, honey. You'll land on your feet, she said, as if I excused it all. Later, Dr. Chen found me crying in the break room. She handed me a steaming cup of tea. Family dynamics, she said, her voice soft, are the hardest disease to treat. Sometimes the only cure is cutting out the infection before it spreads. She was right. Marina had begun spinning a web of lies, telling relatives I was unstable and prone to harassment. Our cousin Sarah called me one evening, her tone cautious. Marina said you've been having breakdowns at work, Sarah ventured. I took a deep breath. Actually, I've been documenting everything, I said, forwarding Sarah screenshots of my rent payments along with the midnight eviction video. I included Sophia's findings about Kyle's sketchy background and Marina's lies. The line went silent for a moment. Then Sarah spoke, her voice low. You know she just got promoted, right? She's been telling everyone how Kyle helped her land the position. That was interesting. Kyle had claimed to be a business consultant, but Sophia's research showed his last legitimate job ended 3 years ago. Suddenly, the pieces were starting to form a picture. One Marina wouldn't want her prestigious law firm to see. Your sister's reputation is everything to her, Sophia said later as we sifted through the evidence. Maybe it's time she learned about the consequences of throwing people away. I stared at yet another missed call from my parents. They'd chosen their side. Now it was time to choose mine. Make copies of everything, I told Sophia. We're going to need them. The push came during Marina's big moment, the annual law firm gala, where she was set to receive her promotion. Sophia's contact at the firm confirmed the story. Kyle had used his fake business connections to help Marina network her way up. Your sister's about to learn a lesson about due diligence, Sophia said, adjusting the neckline of my dress. As a client of the firm through the hospital, I had a legitimate invitation. Marina hadn't counted on that. I spotted my parents the moment I walked in. Mom went pale, and Dad suddenly found his shoes fascinating. Across the room, Marina was glowing under the spotlight, Kyle glued to her side, playing the devoted boyfriend. When she saw me, her smile vanished. What are you doing here? She hissed, pulling me aside. Her mask of composure was already cracking. Supporting my sister's success, I said sweetly. Isn't that what family does? Kyle stepped forward, trying to puff up his chest. I turned to him, my smile razor sharp. Actually, Kyle, I'd love to hear more about your consulting work. Especially with Bradbury Corp. Wasn't that right before they filed for bankruptcy? His face turned an impressive shade of gray. Bradbury Corp. Wasn't just a random name. It was one of his previous scams. Marina's law firm was handling the bankruptcy case. You need to leave, Marina said, her voice shaking. You're just jealous of my success. Success built on what? I shot back. Kyle's fake references or the money you stole from me? The managing partner chose that exact moment to approach. Olivia, Dr. Chen speaks highly of you. I didn't realize you were Marina's sister. Marina's grip on her champagne flute tightened as I smiled at him. Oh, I have some fascinating family stories to share, I said, pulling out my phone, including a video of Marina illegally evicting me while I was severely ill and admitting to embezzling my rent payments. You wouldn't dare, Marina hissed. Try me. I turned to Kyle. And those women from Bradbury Corp send their regards. They're very interested in your consulting ventures. The next 10 minutes were pure chaos. Kyle, proving himself every bit the coward Sophia's background check suggested, tried to slip out the door. Security intercepted him. He was already wanted for questioning in the Bradbury case. Marina's meltdown was spectacular, her screams echoing through the hall as guests filmed every second on their phones. Mom's attempts to intervene only worsened the situation. Marina's behavior is just high spirits, Mom stammered, turning to the managing partner. Olivia's always been sensitive. Sensitive? A familiar voice cut through the chaos. Dr. Chen had arrived, her gaze steely. You mean the resident who handled a triple trauma case last week while managing a chronic illness? The one your daughter endangered by throwing her out in freezing weather. The whispers began, spreading like wildfire through the crowd. Marina's carefully constructed facade crumbled. She'd built her reputation on lies, and tonight, every one of them was coming to light. Sometimes karma doesn't wait. Sometimes it just needs a little push. Marina's carefully crafted image dissolved like sugar in the rain. Dad finally looked up from his shoes, the dawning realization in his eyes. But it was far too late for damage control. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about what you do. It's letting the truth take its moment on stage. The aftermath unfolded faster than I could have imagined. Marina's promotion disappeared, just like Kyle, who bolted the moment the police started asking questions about his role in the Bradbury Corp scandal. Her law firm, desperate to distance itself from the fallout, graciously accepted her voluntary resignation. 2 weeks later, I was in the hospital cafeteria when Sophia joined me. I thought you'd be celebrating, she said, watching me toy with my lunch. I showed her my phone, displaying the latest text from my mom. You've ruined Marina's life. Sophia snorted. You didn't ruin anything. Marina did this to herself. The fact that your parents can't see that tells you everything you need to know about moving forward. She was right. Marina had been forced to sell her house. The one she partly funded with my stolen rent money. Last I heard, she'd moved back in with our parents, who were now dealing with their own social exile. Word of how they enabled Marina's behavior had spread quickly among their circle of friends. During rounds, Dr. Chen mentioned casually, your mother tried to corner me in the parking lot. I froze. What did she say? She suggested you'd overreacted. I told her the hospital has an excellent ethics board if she'd like to formally discuss the medical neglect of a vulnerable patient. That made me smile. My chosen family had only grown stronger. Sophia and I signed a lease together last week. Her spare room was now my home. My colleagues, led by Dr. Chen, became my unwavering support system. Even cousin Sarah showed up with moving boxes and takeout. I found these in Marina's stuff, she said, handing me a stack of greeting cards. All the birthday and holiday cards you sent her over the years. She kept every card but didn't care about her actual sister, I said, tossing them into the recycling. Marina's been calling again, Sarah admitted, trying to get people to convince you to help her rebuild her life. She says she's changed. That Kyle manipulated her. I shook my head. Good for her. She can change on her own time. Not long after, my phone buzzed with another text from Dad. Your mother's heartbroken. When are you going to forgive and move forward as a family? I showed the text to Sarah and Sophia. Watch this, I said, locking both of their numbers. That evening, Dr. Chen stopped me after my shift. Your latest labs came back, she said with a rare smile. The stress reduction in your life is paying off. Your numbers are the best they've been in months. Funny how removing toxic people can heal you better than any medication. The law firm even sent a card last week renewing their hospital contract. They specifically requested me as their liaison. Apparently, integrity matters to them. Who knew? Marina's last attempt to contact me came in the form of a tear-stained letter filled with excuses and apologies. I didn't read past the first line. Some people mistake forgiveness for permission to hurt you again. I'm a doctor. I took an oath to do no harm. But that also includes not allowing others to harm me. The night they threw me out into the cold taught me everything I needed to know about my family. Now I've built a new one. One rooted in respect, trust, and real love. To anyone watching who's been hurt by family, remember this. You don't owe anyone a place in your life if they show you they don't deserve it. Sometimes the family you choose is the only medicine you'll ever need. The best revenge? Living well and letting karma take care of the rest. What do you think of Olivia's journey? Would you have handled things differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more powerful stories about standing up to toxicity and reclaiming your peace. Let's keep supporting each other through the challenges of healing and rebuilding. See you in the next story. Hi, I'm Lisa. Here we are. 2 years ago, my husband James and I finally achieved our dream, buying the perfect house in the suburbs of Boston. It was everything we had ever wanted. 3 bedrooms, a gorgeous kitchen with granite countertops, and the cutest little breakfast nook overlooking a garden. We worked tirelessly for this place, saving every penny from my marketing agency job and James's engineering career. For the first few months, it felt like living in a fairy tale. We hosted Sunday dinners for James's family, his parents, Patricia and Robert, and his younger brother, Mike. Patricia always brought her famous apple pie. Robert told his endearingly bad dad jokes, and Mike, though perpetually late, redeemed himself by bringing an excellent bottle of wine. It was perfect. This house was made for family gatherings, Patricia would say as she helped me clear the dishes. You two picked such a wonderful home. But then Mike started dating Sarah. At first, Sarah seemed nice enough. She worked in real estate, always dressed impeccably, and laughed at all the right moments. But something about her didn't sit well with me. She had this odd habit of wandering around our house during dinners, running her fingers along the walls, peeking into closets, and asking questions that felt calculated. Everything changed at last month's Sunday dinner. Mike stood up and announced their engagement, and naturally, everyone was thrilled. Champagne was poured, toasts were made. But then Sarah, swirling her glass with a sly smile, said, "Now that we're going to be family, we should talk about family properties." The room went silent. James squeezed my hand under the table. "What do you mean, family properties?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. Patricia jumped in quickly, her tone overly cheerful. "Oh, you know, families help each other, especially young couples just starting out." Mike nodded, giving me a smile that sent a chill down my spine. "Exactly, Mom. James and Lisa are already established. They could easily find another place." I nearly choked on my drink. Another place. Sarah chimed in, inspecting her manicure as if this was the most casual conversation in the world. "This house would be perfect for us, especially with the nursery we're planning." James stiffened beside me. Robert suddenly became engrossed in his phone. The perfect family dinner crumbled into a series of awkward glances and forced throat clearing. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The way Sarah had been mentally measuring our rooms, how Patricia kept dropping hints about family obligations in recent weeks. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. And trust me, you'll want to hear every detail of how this entitled disaster unfolded. The very next morning, the text messages began. Mike sent me a novel-length message about doing the right thing for family and how Sarah had already started planning renovations. Over coffee that afternoon, I showed the messages to my sister Amy. "Are they serious?" Amy asked, nearly spitting out her latte. "They want your house as a wedding gift? That's insane." I nodded and scrolled to show her more. It gets better. Patricia's been sending me daily essays about family duty and how James and I are more established, so we should help the young couple. "You're only 3 years older than Mike," Amy said, incredulous. "Exactly," I sighed. And that was just the beginning of the storm. Here's how it all went down. I hadn't wanted to go to yesterday's family dinner, but James insisted. "We can't let them drive us away," he said. Big mistake. The moment we walked in, Sarah launched into a monologue about paint samples for her future living room. "Actually," I said, cutting her off, "we're about to repaint our living room ourselves. Navy blue." Patricia's fork clattered against her plate. "But Sarah hates dark colors." You should really consult her before making any changes to the house. That's when I discreetly started recording on my phone. My best friend Carol, who happens to be a lawyer, had advised me to document everything. Smart move. Mom, James said firmly, it's our house. We're not consulting anyone about changes. Mike's face turned red. Come on, bro. You know Sarah, and I need this. We can't afford anything in this neighborhood on our own. Not our problem, I replied flatly. Sarah burst into tears. You're ruining everything. We already told everyone at our engagement party that we'd be moving into this house. The room erupted. Patricia wailed about ungrateful children. Mike slammed his fist on the table, making the glasses jump. Sarah kept crying, crocodile tears, obviously. Robert stared silently at his plate, avoiding eye contact with anyone. This is what's going to happen, Mike growled, leaning across the table. You're going to sign over this house as our wedding gift, or you'll regret it. Family can make life very difficult. Things got ugly fast. Sarah took to Facebook, posting daily sob stories about selfish family members destroying her and Mike's dreams. She never named us directly, but everyone knew. The comments were brutal. Mutual friends took sides, distant relatives offered unsolicited opinions, and Patricia gleefully shared every post, adding her own commentary about heartless children. Then James's cousin Thomas reached out, a real estate agent who'd worked with Sarah before. He dropped a bombshell. You won't believe what I found, he said. Sarah was fired from her agency last year for trying to manipulate elderly clients into selling below market value to her private investors. Private investors? James asked. Shell companies Mike created, Thomas explained. He's got 3 failed businesses under different names, massive debt, and 2 pending lawsuits from angry investors. They're not after your house because they love it. They're desperate for assets. Everything clicked. The rushed engagement, the constant pressure, Sarah's fixation on our property value. They needed something to sell or use as leverage for their mounting debts. Meanwhile, Patricia's antics escalated. She started showing up at my office unannounced, crying in the lobby about her poor baby boy who just needed a chance. When security escorted her out, she screamed that I was destroying the family. One of my clients, witnessing the spectacle, suggested a restraining order. Carol sent them a formal cease and desist email, warning that further harassment would have consequences. Their response? Mike created a YouTube video titled How My Brother's Wife Tore Our Family Apart. It spread quickly in our local community, and my phone blew up with messages from church members, old classmates, and even my daughter's dance teacher, all asking what was going on. Emmy, my sister, helped me organize everything: screenshots, recordings, witness statements. They're digging their own grave, she said as she sorted evidence into neat folders. Keep letting them talk. The family split into clear camps. Robert, finally breaking his silence, called James privately. I can't support what they're doing, he admitted. I found credit card statements. Mike's in deeper trouble than anyone knows. Thomas dug even deeper into Mike's finances. He's been borrowing from everyone, family, friends, even sketchy online lenders. Sarah's been helping him hide it all. But they're about to crash hard. Through it all, I stayed quiet, carefully documenting every threat, every lie, every manipulative attempt. Let them think they were wearing us down. Let them get bolder. Because while they were busy trying to destroy our reputation, they had no idea Thomas and Carol were building an airtight case against them. And then the reckoning came. Thomas submitted his findings to the state licensing board. Within hours, Sarah's real estate license was suspended, pending investigation into her illegal property schemes. Her perfect social media facade crumbled as former clients came forward, sharing their horror stories. Sarah left a furious voicemail. I can't believe you ruined my career. This is all your fault. But it wasn't my fault. It was theirs. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people's true nature come to light. Revenge isn't about getting even. It's about holding up a mirror and letting karma do the rest. The dominoes were just starting to fall. Carol filed our harassment case, presenting a flawless package of evidence: recordings, screenshots, witness statements, YouTube videos, social media posts, and even Patricia's meltdown at my office. Everything was documented in meticulous, chronological detail. Then came the next wave. Mike's former business partners stepped forward with proof of his fraudulent schemes. Those shell companies, not just failing, illegal. The police got involved, and suddenly Sarah's designer bags started appearing on resale sites. She was clearly trying to distance herself from the chaos. I had no idea about his debts. Sarah wailed in a tearful new video, her engagement ring conspicuously missing. He lied to everyone. Patricia scrambled to do damage control, but her attempts to paint it all as a misunderstanding fell flat against the mountain of evidence. Mike's response? He showed up at our house one night, drunk and raging about how we ruined everything. Our security cameras captured it all, and the restraining order came through the next day. As for Sarah, she moved back to her parents' house in Ohio. "Don't contact me again," she texted Mike. "My lawyer will handle everything." The final blow came when it was revealed that the online lenders Mike had borrowed from weren't exactly legal. The FBI got involved, and watching him do the perp walk on local news felt surreal. Patricia sold her prized country club membership to help cover Mike's mounting legal fees. The same people who had called us heartless were now avoiding her in a grocery store. Funny how fast social circles shrink when scandal hits. As for us, our house finally feels like home again, free of their toxic energy. We still host Sunday dinners, but now with people who actually care about us. Amy, Carol, Thomas, and even Robert, who's slowly rebuilding his relationship with James without Patricia's interference. Mike's facing serious charges. Patricia's in therapy. Sarah's starting over in Ohio. And us? We just repainted the living room navy blue. Sometimes standing your ground means watching others fall on theirs. Our house isn't just walls and windows. It's a symbol of everything we worked for, everything we protected. And now, finally, it's at peace. Like I said, karma doesn't need your help. It just needs an audience. So what would you have done if your brother-in-law declared your house a family obligation? Would you have exposed his schemes immediately or collected evidence quietly? Like we did. Share your thoughts in the comments. Some people say family should always come first, but where do you draw the line between supporting loved ones and enabling toxic behavior? Was I too harsh or not harsh enough? If you enjoyed this journey of justice served, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about standing up to entitled family members. Every like helps more people find these stories and maybe even gives them the courage to stand up for themselves too. This story has come to an end, but your thoughts could help someone going through something similar right now. What red flags did you notice early in the story that I might have missed?